Sounds great, though.
And so do you.
Good to have me back on, huh? Now, don't get me wrong, B team was great, but it's good. It's it's like getting Tillman back with a new ankle, you know.
Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Oh, Mike, bad news, out of cold beer. So, but yeah, other than that, buddy, you know, it's a bye week. You know what I'm saying? So,
it is.
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Man, it is sure sweet to hear your voice. How you holding up over there, brother?
Oh, going good. I appreciate everybody reaching out to me. It's been a wild week. Family situation, but we're going to be back on routine moving forward. Appreciate everybody getting on, man. I'll tell you this, brother. It's unusual that I avoid Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But every time I get on there, I am tagged by Kentucky and some of the interviews you had on this week. So I don't know what the hell happened, Mike, but somebody stepped in a beehive while I was gone.
Well, I could just sum it up quickly for you, Shane. My popularity's in the toilet with a lot of these fan bases, and your popularity is higher than ever. I'll just say that.
Oh, the show goes to shit when Shane's not here, right?
Exactly. So
well, I'm back, baby. I'm ready for some college football, and we got a hell of a slate coming up this week, brother. A lot of SEC matchups, and we think about last weekend, what we saw. Those were the best games, and we're going to have a continuation of that this week. So I'm looking forward to some action, brother.
Right, and real quick, Shane, you know, we're doing this late on Thursday. South Carolina just wrapping up a victory over South Carolina State. But not necessarily an impressive one. The game got moved due to the hurricane, of course. Mm-hmm. Quick thoughts on that, Shane. You got anything on the Gamecocks here?
Well, yeah, we'll do a deeper dive into this next week. But ugly, Mike. I know people looking at the scoreboard and they're thinking South Carolina kicked some ass this week. They had some good things, but they had some bad things, and it just felt like they couldn't get in rhythm again, Mike. And I got a buddy that lives in South Carolina. He's texting me the whole time. He said, we got to get rid of this Satterfield. So, I mean, I haven't really got to do a deep dive at the tail end of the game because we were preparing for the podcast here. But, again, it didn't look good, brother.
Yeah, and I can sum it up without having even, like you said, getting ready for this pod, not been able to even watch a lot of it. Going to watch it when I finish the editing and uploading process. But I got tagged from Old Takes Exposed on Spencer Rattler saying he could be the second best quarterback in the East this season. So that's how I knew it was going rough for them Gamecocks, Shane. And, hey, I've responded to that because in the tweet it does say Hendon Hooker #1. I'm looking good, man. That's all you can expect from me, Shane. If I throw out two takes, one's going to be good, one's going to be garbage. But 50-50, that's a decent average.
Well, they don't call you Optimistic Mike for nothing, you know? Glass half full. I like that, brother.
Yeah, well, before we get to these games, real quick, Shane, got to mention we do have one other game. It's going to be moved on to Sunday, Eastern Washington at Florida. Sunday, again, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central, ESPN and SEC Network Plus. Because this is a FCS game, we don't pick those ones, but is there any one or two things that should be looking for from the Gators in this matchup?
I think a continuation. I think Florida's on the right path, since that Kentucky game. Yeah. I think they got punched in the mouth a little bit. You know, they went toe-to-toe with the University of Tennessee, and everybody, including my mom, thought, this was not going to be a ball game, and what did they do? They turned around and make it a ball game. So I think this one right here is what I want to see is just fixing some of those errors, those mistakes they made last week, especially in the secondary, especially on this defensive side of the ball. And again, just find some more weapons. Keep building on Anthony Richards' his confidence, because if you can keep him rolling, brother, he is just dynamite, and he could be special. So just keep that momentum rolling.
Yeah, no, I love that, Shane. That was one I was going to hit on. Anthony Richardson. Got to make sure, we've got to stop with the up and down performances. Mm-hmm. Now, clearly, you're playing Eastern Washington. I mean, it would be a horrible, horrible sign if he struggled against them. So, he doesn't have to throw for 500 yards or whatever he did against Tennessee, but he's just got to not turn the ball over, keep developing as a passer. And how about this, Shane? The defense just got torn apart by Tennessee. That's going to happen. Tennessee's an elite offense. But I want to see the starters at least. I want to see them shut out Eastern Washington. I don't think that's too much to ask. Have a solid performance, gain that confidence, because remember it was last year, Shane. I know different coaching staff. I'm not comparing this to the end of the Dan Mullen era or anything, but remember they had I believe it was an FCS team come in there and they basically they put up like 50 points on the Gators.
Mm-hmm.
So we just don't want that we don't want confidence to be shaken, basically is what I'm trying to say on the defensive side of the ball, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And we don't want a South Florida game either. This isn't one that needs to linger around and be a second half ball game. This does need to be put to bed there at halftime and get those starts out because, Florida's thin and say what you want. Going toe-to-toe, that may have been part of the reason why they were just so damn exhausted up there in Neyland because the week before they fought for their life against South Florida.
Right.
So take advantage of this inferior opponent and get those starters out, build some competitive depth because you're going to need it at the tail end of this season.
Yeah. Well, Shane, are you ready? I know you're ready to pick these games. We got 5 SEC matchups, but right before we do that, Shane, got to mention sponsors to the show, really fired up. Wager, they just renewed with the podcast, so you guys are really killing it with that. If you have not already, jump on the Wager app. Doesn't cost you a dime. You don't have to put in a credit card. I mean, how good of a deal is that, Shane? Join the Wager app, search That SEC Podcast. There's a group you can wager against Shane and I. We got our wager of the week. We wager on all these games. So come take our money. And right now, Shane, they're matching your initial deposit up to $100 with the promo code SEC. And maybe you don't want to throw in $100, Shane. Maybe you just want to try it out. You put in that promo code SEC. They'll give you $20 free to gamble with this weekend. And again, the best part, you don't have to put in a credit card. They really just want you to try out the app. And if you don't like it, hey, you can withdraw your money after taking some of ours on Saturday. You know what?
Well, Mike, a lot of people were afraid to jump on there, and rightfully so at the beginning because Shane was on fire. But, the tides have kind of turned, so I'm noticing a lot more competition on there. So be sure to jump on there. If you think that Shane's picks are starting to go to trash, come up there and take my money.
Yeah, and again, there's a link to get to the Wager app in the show notes. It's for Tennessee residents only, or if you're visiting, you come to Nashville for one of these games, you come to Rocky Top for a Tennessee game, you can jump on the Wager app. You got to be 21 years of age or older, and if you got a gambling problem, Shane, 1-800-889-9789. And we're also, Shane, brought to you Prize Picks. We love the Prize Picks. We love the fact, Shane, daily fantasy sports. This is the only one that we know of that allows you to do college football players. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's what we cover. So week in, week out, I'm giving you winners on the Prize Picks app, Shane. Not only do they have college football, they got NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, hockey. They got it all over at Prize Picks. Same promo code as Wager, promo code SEC. They'll match your initial deposit up to $100. Link is in the description, and that is available all across the country. But Shane, I have got us more guaranteed winners for the Prize Picks. Are you ready for these?
I'm ready, buddy.
All right, how about this one, Shane? KJ Jefferson over 220.5 passing yards against them Alabama Crimson Tide.
I like it, Mike, because there's going to be a lot of throwing involved to keep up with that Crimson Tide. So
exactly,
I think this is a great bet here, Mike.
Now, I know you're going to like this one, Shane. Stetson Bennett playing the Missouri Tigers. Not just passing, but this is another beautiful thing about Prize Picks, Shane. You can do passing and rushing.
Yeah.
Over 300 yards for Stetson Bennett, passing and rushing combined. I mean, that's a lock, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know because, there's. I'm with you, man. I just don't know how much we're going to see of Stetson Bennett or how much they're going to require Stetson Bennett. And I'm not trying to give away my pick at all, but I think you know where I'm going here. I don't know. I'm expecting a heavy dose of running.
It's a blowout, and we got to get other quarterbacks some reps. In a conference game on the road. Come on, Shay. Get out of here with that.
I know. I shouldn't say that, but a lot of that had to do with freaking Auburn last week, and I think they lost confidence. So, how do they bounce back from that tough football game? So I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned that Stetson's going to get some stats here, but I just don't know how much they're going to need. So I'm going to stay away from this one.
Now, how about this one, Shane? Will Levis under 19.5 pass completions. And you may say, well, hey, 19.5, that seems like, surely he could get that. He only had 18 against Northern Illinois. He only had 13 against Florida. Now, he did have 21 against Miami of Ohio and 27 against Youngstown. But, we'll get to the picks for that game. But it seems like going on the road, playing an undefeated Ole Miss, you're not going to be throwing it all over the yard. You're getting Chris Rodriguez back. I mean, this is going to be a contested ball game. I think it's unlikely. I'm not saying Will Levis is going to have a bad game, but I'm saying it seems unlikely they're going to throw it 35, 40 times, which is going to require, a ton of attempts to get to 20 completions, if that makes sense.
And not to mention, man, Ole Miss has turned into an old school Georgia Tech all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? It's like watching Army out there. So these guys like to run the ball, and when you run the ball, that moves the clock. So again, probably not as many opportunities. So I like this bet, Mike.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite one of the week. Again, check it out, Prize Picks in the link. But Shane, we have got us some SEC action to predict. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I was just thinking, watch Will Levis throw 19 completions on the first drive, average 3 yards attempt,
Knowing by luck, it'll happen. All right, let's start right here, Shane. Number 1, Georgia, on the road at Missouri. Then Bulldogs, Shane, favored by 29 points. The over-under is 54. The game is a night game here, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on the SEC Network. Last season, Georgia won 43-6, and Georgia has won 8 in a row in this series.
Yeah, Mike, this one's a tough one. And like I said, I think a lot of this is momentum. And when I say that, I think the Missouri Tigers had an opportunity last week to get get their first SEC win. And I really think that was I think that game was more important to them than it was Auburn, believe it or not. But they just weren't able to do that. So how does that carry over? I'm feeling a hangover effect here, Mike. I'm not seeing the seniority on this team step up and rally the troops, like I've seen some other programs in the past. And you want to talk about rally? Look at the Georgia Bulldogs. Here's a team that, nobody watched Kent State game, but they talked about it. And I think that is the rat poison that Kirby needed all week to let everyone know that, hey, we are the defending national champs, and we're going to show the country that we're that we're going to repeat. And maybe they were looking ahead, maybe not to this game, but maybe they just thought it was an inferior opponent. They wouldn't have to game prep near as much, but there was a lot of mistakes. I think they cleaned that up this week, and unfortunately, I think Mizzou is going to be on the receiving end of that. So, unfortunately, Mike, I think it's going to be a good game, but I think they messed up the time here. They should have put this one at noon because it's going to be over by half. Georgia, 42. Mizzou, 10. So give me Georgia in them points.
Yeah, and you might be right, Shane. Luther Burden, we don't even know if he's going to play. He's banged up. He's questionable. Drink says that's why, you didn't really see much of him last week against Auburn in that second half. He was banged up. Just listen to some of these stats, Shane. Missouri, 11th in the SEC in scoring, 12th in passing, 11th in touchdowns scored, while Georgia, number 2 in defensive scoring, number 5 in pass efficiency defense, number 2 in rushing defense, number 2 in touchdowns allowed. I mean, this is an epic mismatch when Georgia has the football. So clearly, you got to like Georgia in this. But I'm going to go a little bit opposite of you, Shane, because I think, I think you may be 100% right. I mean, last week, losing that game, that felt like you said goodbye to your bowl hopes if you're Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had that game in hand, should have been won. No need to rehash all that, but this team is hurting. They're banged up. Hell, we got Luther Burden here, doing shenanigans online. I mean, that's got to mess with that locker room a little bit. They might cave, like you're saying, or Shane, every time Georgia goes on the road in this conference now, it's like the dang Super Bowl. And that doesn't mean that Missouri's going to play like Superman and win this football game, but I think they're going to give it their best shot because this basically is their season now.
Right. Beating
the Georgia Bulldogs at home, things are going to have to come together. But the Bulldogs are banged up in this one, Shane. Lad McConkey's hurt. A.D. Mitchell's hurt. I know we got some superhumans at tight end making up for all these lack of elite playmakers. Kenny McIntosh, the running back's banged up. Georgia's a hurting team on the offensive side of the ball, so I don't know if they can cruise to like 40 points like you're saying here. So I don't know. Night game at Missouri. I don't know if the place is going to be rocking or not, but I would bet it's a pretty full stadium to see.
Oh, they got rocks there, Mike. You remember? Don't forget. I'm sorry.
That's true. That's true. There will be rocks there, but I don't know if the stadium's going to be rocking or not, Shane. But I think they'll put up a little bit more of a fight. And I say all that, Shane. I basically have the same score as you, but I'm taking Missouri and the points. Georgia 38. Missouri 10. So, I mean, we're talking by a shade of a point here, but I think Missouri puts up a little bit more of a fight than you're giving them credit for.
It's funny. I can't remember the tweet, but somebody asked me, said, why don't you guys ever talk positive about Georgia Bulldogs? It's so tough when it's just the big bad boy in the you know what I'm saying? It's just hard to just keep. I mean, you've been petted all off season, and it's nothing against them. They are the big boys in town right now, and they're the tough ones to beat. But so I want to pile on, Mike. If we're being optimistic and giving Mizzou a shot against them Georgia Bulldogs, what needs to happen, man?
They've got to connect on some of these deep shots because Missouri can run the football. I mean, I don't know how well they can do it against Georgia, but I guess everybody else, they can run the football. That's what Drink's offense is all about. Motions, eye candy, as Kirby calls it. They can fool you. They can get you looking one way, you're going the other. We have seen that. They've scored 50 points in a ball game. I realized it was Louisiana Tech, but all that's predicated on the play action, hitting the ball down the field. Dominique Lovett, Shane, the receiver, he's number one in the SEC in receiving yards. So they can stretch the field. They can push it. It's not been hitting against Auburn, obviously. Didn't work for anything against Kansas State. They have got to get Brady Cook or Jack Abram or whoever it is under center, got to get him some confidence. And I think they've really got to push the football down the field. That's been lacking, and I think a lot of that is because they don't trust their offensive line, and this is not the game to get your offensive line some confidence. You know what I mean?
Right. I got you, man. Well, I just wanted, I wanted to give them. Let me ask you this one last question. Over under. How many field goal attempts do we see Harrison have here?
I think they go right back to him, and they have to because I mean, I realize you'll never beat Georgia kicking field goals, but at the same time, it's almost like we got to get this guy over his shanks because we're going to need him if we're going to beat other SEC East teams that are coming up on your slate, so to speak, You
think he warms up at all?
He better.
Maybe one in the net.
Maybe we know why they call him the thicker now. He just to hell with practice.
Yeah, it's me. I ain't getting out there. I'm too damn lazy to kick twice. I just want to kick once. Give me the game winner.
All right, how about this one, Shane? LSU on the road at Auburn. LSU favored by 8. The over-under is 46 points. And this is another night game, Shane. 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central on ESPN. Last season, Auburn won 24-19 at LSU. TJ Finley out. Auburn center, which is really, they're down to the second string. He's out, so they're down the third string. But LSU starting guard Garrett Dellinger's out. Their safeties, Major Burns is out. So we got some players banged up. Who do you like in the ball game here?
Mike, one thing I talked about with Kelly and them LSU Tigers in the offseason, I said this is a team that you've got to hit them early.
Yeah.
And I am very surprised that Mississippi State beat them. I am very surprised in the way they've put away some of these, let's just say inferior opponents. I think I've said that 3 times during the show. I learned a new word today, so I'm going to keep using it, Mike, because that's what Kelly and the boys have done. They have impressed me, man. And I told you had to get them early. I did not expect them to be hitting on the – I'm not saying all cylinders, but they have been a lot more efficient here of late, and they're starting to discover their true identity, and that's what makes them dangerous. And then you go over here to the Plains, and I know it's at home because that's all they do. All they have is home games. And one of the things that I like about Auburn is that they won that tough-fought ball game last year. Things did not go their way. But it felt like we were a little exposed. It felt like the script's out, the video's out. We can't hide the flaws that this team has anymore, and that's what scares me, especially when it talks about money. Now, what else scares me is Vegas is not in favor of Auburn either. They quickly switched that spread. So the more I think about this game, the more confident I become that LSU gets yet another victory. In fact, so confident, this is my wager of the week. Give me LSU Tigers 28, Auburn War Eagles 14.
Ooh. Well, Shane, last week, I
don't know. Can you say War Eagles? I think that sounded stupid. So it's the Tigers versus the Tigers. But I didn't want to, I wanted to mix it up a little bit, and it sounded dumb the more I thought about it. So anyway, you know what? I'm probably wrong. I lost my wager last week. I may be on a downward spiral. Like I said, you could jump on the app if you feel like I'm wrong. But I think I bounced back this week, Mike. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was just stunned. I mean, people thought I was kidding, Shane, when I said 10-9 Missouri versus Auburn. Yeah. It was 14-14 by the end of regular. I mean, I was pretty damn close. I mean, I couldn't believe Auburn got in the end zone twice. And they managed to do it in the first quarter, so let's give them credit. Of course, they never did it again, but aside from jumping on a Missouri fumble. But Auburn, everything you just said, they could be in real trouble, brother. I mean, we're a month into the season, and we're rolling out a 2-quarterback system. Robbie Ashford, the freshman Holden Grenier. I mean, this is not a combination at this point in time that's going to win you any SEC games outside of maybe Missouri and Vanderbilt, and they ain't got Vanderbilt on the schedule. So,
right,
man, I'm feeling rough about this one, Shane. LSU, we saw what Penn State did to this Auburn team on the ground. LSU's got the number 4 rushing attack in the SEC. Their offense has yet to hit its stride, yet they're number 5 in scoring, whereas Auburn defense, 10 in the SEC in rushing, 9 in scoring, 10 in touchdowns allowed. I mean, I think LSU's going to have their way with Auburn. I really, really do. And I'm going even lower than I did last week, Shane, because Auburn's got probably the number 13 offense in the SEC. I'm looking at scoring, passing efficiencies, touchdowns scored, and they turn the ball over like crazy. They're number 12 in turning the ball over. So while LSU's defense, number 1 in forcing turnovers. I mean, this is just a nightmare matchup, and I'm trying to figure out, Shane, how the spread is only 8. I'm right there with you. Wager of the week, LSU 28, Auburn 6. So we just guaranteed that Auburn's pulling the outright upset here because we both wagered up LSU. You know what?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it like, it's their, 5th home game in a row. Don't you just get tired of going to the stadium every Saturday? It's like, this is a big game, and it's a fun game. And in years past, we've had some epic matchups between these two storied programs. It's just Right now, man, we've got a team up against the ropes, and we got another one that just keeps getting stronger, and that's what scares me, and that's why I like the wager. But again, Mike, like you said, it was just a matter of time before we went wrong, and this may be the week.
All right, how about this one, Shane? Should be a heck of a game. Number 17, Texas A&M at Mississippi State. Bulldogs, Shane, favored by 4 at home. The over-under is 45 points. The game kicks off at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central on the SEC Network. Last season, Mississippi State won 29-26 in College Station. And how about this, Shane? I mean, I don't think a lot of people recognize how well Mississippi State has been in this series. They've won 4 of the last 6 and 5 of the last 8 over Texas A&M. So, having said all that, who do you like in the game?
Neither one of them, Mike. And I think this is a great opportunity to tell the listeners about Morristown Honda. Here's the thing, brother. I don't Mississippi State. I thought I had them figured out. I thought this was the year. I thought, people were sleeping on them, and then they go down there and they screwed it up against LSU. And then you look at Texas A&M, another program. I thought I had it figured out. They're going to win the West. They're going to compete for a national championship. And then they lose to App State, and they just can't get it going.
Yeah.
But one thing I have noticed about these Aggies is they are resilient, man. They find ways to win. It ain't pretty. And the reason it's not pretty is because they got one of the best damn defenses in the country. Mm-hmm. And if it weren't for that defense, they'd be in a whole lot more trouble. But this is a defense that gets better week after week. And they held a dynamite offense last week in check and kept them in the game and was able to help win that game and even put points on the board.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced right now, Mike, that Mississippi State has a better offense than Arkansas. And if they can keep them in check, how can you go against the Aggies right now? Because this feels like a trick. I'm looking, this feels like, I ain't gonna lie. You know what it feels like, brother? It feels like that Penn State Auburn game. And I'm looking at this point spread, and I'm like, man, yeah, I could see I'm convincing myself Auburn can win it. That's what I'm doing with Mississippi State. I'm convincing myself that Mississippi State has a shot to beat Texas A&M. But I know that later in the evening, as I'm looking at the scores, I'm going to say, what the hell was I thinking? Counting Jimbo out. So, Mike, I know you hate the Aggies, but I do not. So give me my Morristown Honda pick of the week. A&M 21, Mississippi State 20.
Ooh. Man, yeah, I think a lot of good points made by you, Shane. I mean, this game could go either way. Should be one heck of a game. One thing you didn't mention, DJ Durkin, the point's been made, but he was at Ole Miss last year. Mm-hmm. They really corralled this Mississippi State offense. So I don't want to say he's got Mike Leach figured out, but he knows how to beat him. Now, on the flip side, Mike Leach, he knows how to beat Texas A&M. He's kind of owned them over the years. No wonder he likes the Aggies. He beats them more than he loses to them. So, I understand that. But this is a game of strength on strength, Shane. You kind of hit on it. Mississippi State offense, particularly the passing game, of course, against Texas A&M's defense and their pass defense, which has been outstanding. Number 3 pass defense efficiency in the SEC. Number 4 in scoring. Like you said, the Aggie defense is keeping them in ball games, and that's what I'm a little worried about, Shane. I think you're right. If this is a game that is hovering around 20 points, I think A&M does win it because I don't think Texas A&M right now, as good as Max Johnson has come in, he's not playing lights out, but he's not making the mistakes. He's keeping them in the ball game, but I don't think he can win a shootout right now, particularly against Will Rogers. So if it is low scoring, this is something I wanted to mention. Wager of the week, the under 45 could be a very, very strong play, one that I think I'll be playing this week here in Starkville. But I also think, Shane, Mississippi State, they let one get away, and I understand why you're down on them because I'm down on them in the same way, Shane. It's like a kid you're disappointed in, you know? You're talking them up to all your friends. Oh, man, this is going to be the year. He's a beast out there on the field, and then he comes out there and he craps his pants in the big game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was Mississippi State against LSU. We got egg on our face. I think they sense that, Shane. If they drop this A&M game, I think Mississippi State's in for a rough year. So, having said that, I think they got their backs against the wall. They got confidence knowing they can beat A&M. They got those cowbells going to be ringing all day long down there in Starkville. I like Mississippi State, Shane, to correct their season. And this potentially a crossroad games for both of these teams. But Will Rogers, I still don't think we've seen the best of him. And, I don't think he lost them the LSU game. It was a lot of drops and questionable calls and everything like that. So could go either way. But like I'm saying, if either team gets to 30 points, they're going to win this game. And I think Mississippi State much more likely to get there. So I'm going Mississippi State 31, Shane. Texas A&M 13.
Are you guys even surprised? I mean, you can't even hide it anymore, Mike. You're the disappointed kid. It reminds me of a Jeff Foxworthy bit when he was sitting out there. He's talking about this buddy, and he says, look how smart that damn kid is, and he's looking out in the yard, and the kid's looking up in the sky, and he says, airplane. He goes, damn it, that boy's 18 years old. Oh, Mike, you're chasing airplanes out here, brother. I'm going to bury it. And the reason I'm piling on, too, because I still got that chance that they could win the SEC.
Yeah.
But if they drop this one, Mike, I'm piling on them Aggies with you.
Yeah, and one guy we didn't even mention, Shane, he's going to have to take over, I think. Devon Achane, he's heating up, brother. I think he's number 2 in the SEC right now, all-purpose yards.
Yeah.
Can he carry the load? Can he do it week in, week out? I think A&M does have a major advantage with Mississippi State linebackers and Devon Achane and maybe even that A&M offensive line who looks to be getting more and more footing under him. If he goes off, I'm right there with you. Texas A&M can win this ball game.
Yeah, I just think he needs some help too, though. He can't be the only one doing it, and we can't. This defense, they got that bend not break. They're so good in the red zone, and let Will have those dink and dunks. But once you get in the 20, this may come down to a kicking game. I don't know, but I think this is going to be one of the best games on this Saturday, and I cannot wait to watch it.
Now, how about this one, Shane? SEC on CBS. CBS's game of the week. Number 2 Alabama at number 20 Arkansas. Crimson Tide favored by 17. The over-unders 61. Game kicks off, of course, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central on CBS. Alabama won last season in Tuscaloosa 42-35. And Alabama, Shane, has won 14 in a row. Good night. Nick Saban has never lost to Arkansas as head coach of Alabama.
Oh, man. Speaking of good games, brother, this was a good game last year. Arkansas, kind of snuck back into this thing, made it interesting. But it's tough, brother. You're going against Nick Saban, and this team, it felt like Alabama fixed their mistakes last week. And I know it was a tune-up game against Vandy, but there was some errors that were being made, and there were some players that weren't stepping up, and it just felt like it came together in week 4. On the opposite side, it felt like Arkansas let one slip away. Does that carry over into this week, Mike? There's a real shot, and there's a real possibility that they were even looking past A&M for this game. So what kind of Arkansas team do we see? That's the problem I'm having, brother, is I'm not saying Arkansas is not a great program because they've already. We talked about them all offseason. I think they got one of the best quarterbacks, the best running game, best linemen. They've got a lot of great things going for them, brother. But this is Alabama. This is a team that everybody has crowned as the next national champs. Can Arkansas take them down? It helps it's at home, It helps it's not in Jerry's world. This shouldn't come down to a kick. But, brother, I've ran scenario around in my mind, and I just cannot pull the trigger for an upset here, brother. And I'd love to, but I just don't see Alabama letting Arkansas get them this week, brother. So give me Alabama 31, Arkansas 21. I think it's close, but just not close enough.
Let me ask you this, Shane, because this is something I've been talking about all week with people. But, had Arkansas won, they would obviously be undefeated. Mm-hmm. College game day be in town. It'd be a big hoopla. It'd be the biggest game of the week. Do you think Arkansas, maybe all that attention, all that focus, all that hoopla, maybe they're at an advantage having now everybody, here's basically people that don't follow the program that closely. They're saying, well, that was a cute story. They're back to 8-4, 7-5, maybe, and they're just going to get steamrolled. They're going to lose the next 4 ball games and all that. Everybody has forgotten, this was not a top 10 team. That's right. I've heard that more times than I care to repeat. And hell, they earned that number 10, top 10 ranking. So I don't know what in the hell people are saying it was not a top 10 team, but any benefit, I guess is what I'm trying to say, Shane, that now they're being overlooked, now that this game's not being overhyped, now that everybody and their mother's counting them out. Is there any benefit to Arkansas there?
I mean, I guess you could spin it that way. I like it. Optimistic Mike, round 2. I see where
let me also add to this, Shane. The hangover effect, very real. That's the biggest question with this team. But how much of a hangover do you have when you got number 2 who you haven't beaten in 15 years coming in? It's easy to get up off the mat and say, "Hey, we got to focus, man. We got the beast of the West coming in here."
Well, I think part of it's confidence, and when I say confidence, everyone was expecting an A&M victory last week, and this being the true matchup. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it. We both picked them.
Yeah.
So we did not expect Texas A&M to win that game, just given what they. So I think that kind of put a dent a little bit in the confidence. So, KJ seemed a little rattled at times this year, and I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback, but he's got to be dialed in for this game, man. He's got to play the best damn game in his life if he wants to beat Alabama. Is it possible? It is, because they have what it takes to beat Alabama. I love that offensive line. I love Rocket Sanders, the best running back in the country, Just kidding. I think he's up there. But what I'd love to see is them get more physical, because they can go toe-to-toe with the physicality better than anybody in the SEC West, or even in the SEC. So
right.
What does that look like? I just think this is going to come down to KJ playing the best game, and they're going to have to get a couple breaks fall their way, and not like they've done in weeks past. In weeks past, they have been the one giving the breaks and giving these teams opportunities to stay in games and win games. So they're gonna have to come in dialed in and ready to go. So maybe that was part of the problem last week, is they lost that focus because big bad Alabama's coming to town, and potential game day and potential SEC West on the line. They don't have that anymore, but I feel like they still have the confidence to go in there and go toe to toe with these guys. And Sam Pittman, if you've listened to him, man, you can hear it in his voice. That's the same kind of attitude he's bringing into that locker room. So it's going to be a hell of a matchup. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to see an upset. Just like Georgia, I like to talk shit about Alabama because they've been up there too long, Mike. It's time for the changing of the guard, but I got to see a flawless game, and I'm just not ready to put my chips in on it because I've not seen it all year.
Right. Yeah, and that goes without saying. I mean, Arkansas cannot turn the ball over. Alabama has got to turn the ball over a couple times, I think. Maybe a defensive touchdown, maybe a special teams touchdown from Arkansas. I mean, these are the breaks you're going to need to get that momentum, keep that crowd in the ball game. You sure as heck can't let Alabama jump on you and quiet this crowd like we've seen Georgia do to opponents this season. If that happens, you're toast. How about some stats here, Shane? Alabama offense, number 2 in the SEC in scoring, 3 in rushing, 5 in passing efficiency. Arkansas defense, 12th in scoring, 13th in passing efficiency. So seemingly a big mismatch there, but maybe Listen to this, Shane. Alabama defense, number 1 in the SEC in scoring, number 1 in pass efficiency, number 1 in rushing defense. That's pretty damn good. You can't get much better than that. But Arkansas, number 2 pass efficiency, number 2 in rushing, number 8 in scoring. I think those numbers are a little affected by Alabama, who you played, a couple of cupcakes.
Exactly.
Texas, their quarterback got hurt, whereas Arkansas had to play Cincinnati, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Missouri State. Can't really throw them into that mix, but tougher competition is going to skew the stats early. But I think this game is going to come down to, Shane, can they get pressure on Bryce Young? Because they can't let him sit back there and dice up their secondary. That'll happen all day long. Does Alabama have the playmakers to exploit them? Yeah, I don't know. I'm sending a blitz on every other play if I'm Arkansas, even if that's going to expose you in the secondary to some degree. I think that's the only chance they got to slowing down Alabama's defense and their offense and forcing mistakes.
Mike, you remember one of the things we talked about Georgia going into the SEC championship was who have they played toward the tail end of their season? Everybody was crowning them. This is the greatest defense ever. But I think sometimes playing cupcakes can be a problem. Do you see that with this Alabama? Because you mentioned it there. When you got Utah State, Texas, which turned out it's not going to be a good program, UL Monroe, Vanderbilt, these guys are playing just JV programs up to this point. The next 3 weeks, they got 3 top 20 opponents. This is, their schedule gets tough, and there's a real possibility they may even be overlooking Arkansas for Texas A&M coming down the pipe. So
right.
Is there any, I don't know, we didn't put it as a wager here. Is there some hesitancy because of that? Here's Arkansas playing, I'm not saying Arkansas State was tough or anything like that, but they've had some tough fought ball games and nail biters, but that builds calluses, man. That hardens you up. Does that prepare them better for this Alabama program?
Yeah, I think you might be right, Shane. And we ask, is Ole Miss, Kentucky, these teams, are they fool's gold? Why aren't we saying the same thing about Alabama? And I think it's because Alabama gets the benefit of the doubt. I think it's because Saban's track record, and we know how good Bryce Young is. But the reality is, Shane, this offensive line's been an issue for 2 years. They have not replaced adequately any of these elite receivers they've had. They got Jamar Gibbs. He's outstanding. He can't do it all himself. He may have to in this ball game. The defense looks like maybe the best in the country, but I think that's a factor of who they've played. But they got that ace in their pocket, Shane, with Bryce Young, who just in the key situations he plays better than just about anybody in the country. Mm-hmm. Alabama does struggle on the road, but at the end of the day, they are Alabama for a reason, Shane. I'm going Alabama 35, Arkansas 38. Upset.
Oh, you just in bed with them hogs, brother.
Hey, here's what happens, Shane. I pick at least one upset every year with Alabama. Yeah. I'm like 0 for 5, so maybe I'll finally hit one this year. You know what?
Well, I think it's a hell of a matchup, Mike. And before we get too far, it's Missouri State, not Arkansas State. I said that, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not who it was. It was, but anyway. But I think an upset would be fantastic, brother. We need one. We need one, not to go our way. And I don't want an SEC opponent knocked off by App State or some bullshit like that. I want to see a good old-fashioned SEC upset. Maybe we get it this week, brother.
Now we got one more game, Shane. Only matchup in the SEC of undefeated teams. Number 7, Kentucky. Number 14, Ole Miss in Oxford. Ole Miss favored by 7. The over-under is 53.5 points. Game kicks off at noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central on ESPN. Who do you like in the game?
Oh, Mike. I tell you what, you guys are trying to make this a rivalry this week, huh? I mean, Kentucky Ole Miss, we don't hear a lot of fighting, but, if you think about it, the last few times these programs have met, we've had some fights, some dog fights, and this is usually feels like it's done earlier in the season, but I guess, week 5 as early as we can be. This is going to be a hell of a ball game. We got a run back coming back, and Mr. Rodriguez, I think they try to get him involved, and I think that's a big part, man. Will Levis is a fantastic quarterback, but he cannot do it all, and he cannot continue to get his ass beat, and that's the problem I'm having. This offensive line's not been jailed. It's not been protecting. Well, part of that is not being able to run the ball. Yeah. And I think, Big Rog out there, man, he can lean forward and get 2, 3, 4 yards. So I think that helps tremendously. Getting a little bit more balance here. You heard Mark talk about it earlier in the week. Make that joke, now you want him to run. So, yes, we want Kentucky to run the ball. But speaking of run, ain't nobody doing it better than the Ole Miss Rebels right now, man. These guys, it's funny to me. Just it's almost like they got a new coach or a new coordinator. Lane Kiffin just finds what works and he leans into it, and that's been that rushing attack. And the defense has been tremendous. I mean, we're talking a top 14 program. But, Mike, one of the things we discussed last week was this fool's gold? And I think it is. And I know them Rebels don't want to hear that. Shane, why? You just hate Ole Miss. You were throwing mustard bottles at us. I knew it was you bastard. But it's not that, man. Here's what I see. I see a Kentucky program that's going to kind of get a little bit more balanced this week. I see a Kentucky program that doesn't matter who they're playing, they find a way to win. It may be ugly, but they find a way. That perseverance, I think, pays off on the road here. So give me Kentucky. I think it's a close game, Mike, but I got to pick the better quarterback, and that's Mr. Will Levis. Kentucky 30, Ole Miss 27.
Yeah, and here's where Kentucky and their fans are at right now, Shane. I heard several people say this. They said, we're going to beat Ole Miss this weekend, and then y'all are going to turn around and say, well, hell, Ole Miss ain't played nobody. They were overrated. I mean, this is where we're at where we're Kentucky. We used to be, man, can they win an SEC game? Can they make a bowl game? Now they're just going to discredit our latest win. We're damn near halfway through the season. We're undefeated. I mean, such is they're number 7 in the country. They feel like they're disrespected left and right every turn they make. I mean, if we had the college football playoff rankings right now, you'd be knocking on the door of busting that thing in. So, yeah, I like a lot of what you had to say, Shane. I mean, Will Levis, Jackson Dart, that's not even a competition at this point in time. Jackson Dart is going to have to win you this ball game, and he's going to have to do it with your arm, because this Kentucky defense, like we saw against Anthony Richardson, I mean, they can lock down any quarterback that is playing at a high level. They can slow down that running attack. I don't know if they're going to completely shut down Ole Miss because of how effective they are on the ground. Ole Miss has got some running backs banged up. They've got some defenders banged up on the defensive line. We don't know if Zach Evans is going to play in this game. I think he is, but who knows if he's even at 100%. I don't know that there's a receiver that scares you on Ole Miss's offense at this point in time. I was hyping up Michael Trigg, the tight end. I still got high hopes for him, but they've just not been throwing the ball. So it's kind of hard to have these crazy numbers if you ain't throwing the ball, And like you said, getting Chris Rodriguez back, that's going to be huge. Too bad he can't play offensive line because they could certainly use him there more than at running back at this point in time. But no, he'll bring balance back to the offense. He'll bring some play action. This is going to be the toughest test of the season, I think, for Kentucky, even tougher than Florida, who I think kind of gave that game away a little bit. But hey, I'm right there with you, man. Better quarterback, better defense, more proven team. They've already went on the road. The Swamp, a lot more hostile environment than old Vaught Hemingway Stadium. I mean, hell, Kiffin's out here saying we're looking like a high school stadium. And I think this is going to be a Kentucky takeover, Shane. They haven't been down here since 2010, I believe. I think that we're going to see a lot of blue and white in this stadium. So give me Kentucky, Shane, 28, Ole Miss 24. I think Kentucky stays undefeated for yet another week.
I think they'd be happy with that, and I think Ole Miss is happy that we both went this way, brother. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Dart comes out looking like a Heisman. Oh, Mel Kiper updates his NFL board after this one. You never know what's going to happen. But I will tell you, if you remember, these teams, they fight tough, man, and we've had some great ball games here. So I expect no different here this weekend with these two teams.
Right, and this is the perfect time of the season, Shane. Conference matchups. This is when upsets really happen. This is when, these coaches know each other. These players know each other. They go against each other annually in a lot of these cases. Man, this is going to be the best football of the season, and I don't even want to look ahead because the next week is even better on the slate. But I'm ready for some football. How about you, brother?
Oh, man, I am super ready for some football, brother. So, get those wagers in, jump on there, put them bets in, get your prize picks in, get all that rolling. I'm sure we're going to be wrong on a few of these things, Mike, but I don't know. The more I think about it, I may be 100%.
Hey, we only picked 5. How many can we get wrong this week?
I know that's the problem. I'm really leading in. I was thinking for my wager of the week, and I was like, I don't know about that one. And I was like, oh yeah, there it is. But then it just went too easy. I was like, I said that last week.
Well, brother, it's late, so I'm going to let you jump off here. But it is great to have you back on. I can't tell you how many times we got heard from fans and comments. Man, the show just ain't the same without Shane. And I was like, bear with us. He'll be back. But, it was great to have you back.
Yes, thanks for not getting us canceled there, Mike. So I'm back, ready to roll. And we doing Spaces tonight?
Oh, yeah.
All right, be sure to jump on. That's where I've seen most of the death threats. So be sure to jump on tonight on not to pull what's his name, Jim McElwain or anything, but I saw a lot of fighting online. This thing's looking pretty heated. So be sure to jump on Spaces tonight, 8:00. They are moving these games for a reason. There's been a hurricane. There's been a lot of storms. So I just, we got a lot of listeners down there in Florida. Just keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And I hope everybody's safe down there. And it's been a wild one, but it is that time of the year. So other than that, brother, I've got nothing. I look forward to hollering at y'all later tonight.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you, brother. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.